Pressure, scrutiny, expectation. Imagine leading your team to an NBA championship while playing in the game. Not from the sidelines, not with a clipboard, but in the trenches, battling every possession. That was Bill Russell's world. The NBA's first black head coach. 2 titles in 3 years. Red Auerbach's impossible successor. By 1968, he didn't just silence critics, he redefined leadership itself. Bill Russell didn't just play, he rewrote the rules. His name echoes through NBA history, yet one part of his story often fades into the shadows. His coaching. Why? Let's break it down. We're talking about a man who won 11 NBA titles in 13 seasons, more than anyone in history. A 5-time MVP, so dominant they named the Finals MVP trophy after him. A 12-time All-Star, the only player coach to win multiple championships.
And we think that's the most necessary ingredient for winning.
But does he get enough credit, or has history overlooked what he truly accomplished? Let's find out. Bill Russell wasn't supposed to be the head coach. When Red Auerbach retired in 1966, the Celtics needed a new leader. They had just won another championship, their 8th in a row. The dynasty was still rolling. They could have picked anyone, but Auerbach saw only one choice: Russell. At the time, there had never been a black head coach in NBA history. The pressure was enormous, magnified by the racial climate. Some called it a coaching decision, others called it a social experiment. One Boston newspaper questioned the move outright. Celtics gamble on Russell. Russell didn't just have to win, he had to prove he belonged. And he wasn't just leading from the bench, he was still the team's best player. Think about that. Coaching while playing, managing minutes, calling plays, keeping the locker room together, keeping himself together. The real question wasn't just, can he coach? It was, can his teammates accept him as their leader? The transition wasn't seamless. Yesterday, they were equals. Today, he was their boss. Russell later recalled, "I wasn't concerned with being liked. I was concerned with being respected." Auerbach made the announcement on April 18, 1966. The headlines were split. Some celebrated it, others doubted it. But behind closed doors, Russell wrestled with doubts of his own. "I didn't want to be a coach," he later admitted, "but I didn't want anyone else coaching the Celtics. Because if someone else took over, the Celtics wouldn't play the same way." Before the NBA, Russell had already built a legacy of winning. He led the University of San Francisco to back-to-back NCAA titles in 1955 and 1956. He revolutionized defense, shot blocking, rebounding, elite anticipation. He was named the NCAA tournament's most outstanding player. He led Team USA to Olympic gold in 1956 as captain. One of only 8 players to win the Triple Crown: NCAA title, NBA title, Olympic gold. Winning wasn't an accident, it was who he was. And now, the weight of an entire franchise was on his shoulders. But how does a reluctant coach become a dynasty's savior? Coaching is hard. Coaching while playing is nearly impossible. Russell's challenge wasn't just X's and O's, it was respect. Some of his own teammates had doubts. Would he favor himself? Could he bench a friend? Could he manage egos while still dominating as a player? But from day one, Russell made one thing clear. He wasn't coaching from an office. He was coaching from the floor. His leadership was different. He wasn't about speeches. He led with actions. He controlled the defense. He outworked everyone. And when it came to adjustments, Russell trusted his instincts. He knew how to counter Wilt Chamberlain. Because, here's the truth, he couldn't outscore Wilt. He couldn't outmuscle him. So, how did he win? By outthinking him. Instead of always doubling, he baited Wilt into taking bad shots. He made him hesitate. He made him uncomfortable. Russell's biggest weapon? Trust. He empowered his teammates. He made them accountable. And that's when the results started coming. Sam Jones, one of the Celtics stars, initially questioned whether Russell could handle the dual role. Bill was already doing so much for us on the court. How could he possibly do more? But after just a few weeks of practice, he changed his tune. He sees the game differently than anyone I've ever met. Russell's coaching philosophy centered on preparation. He believed games were won in practice,
Wanted to do what I could.
not during timeouts. He implemented focused, intense practice sessions that often lasted less than 2 hours, but demanded complete mental engagement. "I don't need you here for 3 hours," he told his team. "I need you here completely for 90 minutes. And then came his first true coaching test. Midway through his first season, the Celtics hit a 4-game losing streak. Instead of panicking, Russell made a bold move. He canceled practice. "We don't need more drills, we need more trust." The next day, a statement win. Russell had found his coaching voice, and that voice was built on defense and trust, making it an art form rather than just a physical skill. His shot blocking changed the sport. Before him, big men just rebounded. He made the fast break a weapon. Blocking shots led to easy points. Russell didn't just play defense, he weaponized it. The NBA tweaked rules because of him, and Wilt widening the lane and focusing on goaltending. His coaching was built on his understanding of defense and team trust. Not just X's and O's, but game-changing impact. And with that, the Celtics dynasty wasn't over yet. The 1967 season felt different. For the first time in a decade, the Celtics weren't champions. Their legendary streak was over. Boston lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, and critics pounced. The dynasty is done. Russell can't coach. Red Auerbach's system is crumbling. It wasn't just a loss, it was doubt creeping into every conversation. But Russell, he wasn't done. That offseason, while others questioned his ability, he was already planning a comeback. He studied film. He analyzed weaknesses. And when the 1968 season tipped off, Russell wasn't just playing, he was orchestrating. The Celtics were sharper, their defense suffocating. And when they faced Chamberlain's 76ers in the playoffs, Russell outmaneuvered his biggest rival, forcing tougher shots, switching defensive schemes, making every possession a mental battle. It worked. The Celtics reclaimed the throne. Then came 1969, the defining moment, Russell's last run. This time, the challenge was bigger. Chamberlain now on the Lakers. Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. The Lakers were built to end the Celtics' dominance, but Russell had other plans. Game 7, the Forum in Los Angeles, the world watching. His knees were shot. Every step was pain. He played through it anyway. Painkillers, sheer will, championship DNA. Down the stretch, Russell made his final chess move. He turned Don Nelson into Wilt Chamberlain's kryptonite. Nelly's job was to hug Wilt's hips so I could roam, Russell later explained. The plan worked. Chamberlain struggled in the fourth quarter. Final buzzer, Celtics 108, Lakers 106. Russell's last act as a player-coach, hoisting championship number 11. 11 rings, 0 apologies. A 10-0 record in Game 7's, the ultimate winner, the greatest defensive mind. By the time he walked off that court, one thing was clear. Bill Russell hadn't just won. He had outlasted, outsmarted, and outcoached the greatest of his era. In 1969, Bill Russell walked off the court for the final time as a player. No farewell tour, no victory lap, no press conference, just a quiet exit. 11 rings in 13 seasons, the greatest run in NBA history. Then he disappeared. He didn't bask in the spotlight. He didn't take a front office job. He was done. The physical toll, the mental exhaustion, and the weight of expectations had worn him down. But
My agenda was to win every game if possible.
the NBA wasn't done with him. In 1973, he returned, this time as a coach. No longer a player, no longer in control on the floor. First stop, Seattle. A young team, a different era, but the same Russell, demanding, disciplined, obsessed with defense. The problem? This time his message didn't land the same way. He couldn't lead by example anymore. His players didn't fear him like his Celtics teammates once did. The Sonics never became contenders. Then a second chance years later, Sacramento. Different city, same struggles. A front office that didn't align with his philosophy. A roster that didn't match his vision. Frustration, losses, more losses, and the NBA patience runs thin. In 1988, Russell's coaching career ended. No championships, no playoff runs, just frustration. His impact, though, that was far from over. Russell was the first black NBA superstar, preceding Kareem, Magic, and Jordan. He was the first black head coach in any major pro sport. He faced intense racism in Boston, refusing to accept injustice. But here's the thing about Bill Russell. His story wasn't just about basketball. He was always bigger than the game. While he was coaching, he was also fighting battles far beyond the court. He stood alongside Muhammad Ali. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr. He called out injustice when others stayed silent. Coaching in Seattle and Sacramento might not have worked out, but leadership, that never stopped. And in 2011, the world recognized it. President Barack Obama placed the Presidential Medal of Freedom around Russell's neck, a final honor for a lifetime spent leading on the court, in the locker room, and in history. Russell didn't just change basketball, he changed the world. Russell's coaching career ended, but his leadership never did. He stepped away from the sidelines, becoming a mentor, a strategist, a philosopher of basketball and life. He shared his wisdom with players and future coaches, courting respect at Celtics games, coaching clinics, or mentoring stars like Shaquille O'Neal, even advising him to end the beef with Kobe Bryant. Russell's presence carried weight. His leadership simply evolved. In 1975, he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Initially, he refused, believing black players before him had been unjustly overlooked. That was Russell, always standing for something greater. Years later, he embraced the honor. "This game gave me everything, and I gave it everything I had," he reflected. 11 rings, 2 titles as a coach, a cultural icon. But his greatest legacy, it wasn't just about winning games. It was about changing the game forever. Bill Russell, the player, is a legend. That's not up for debate. But Bill Russell, the coach, that's where the discussion gets interesting. 2 championships as a coach, the first player coach to win a title. One of the greatest defensive minds in basketball history. Yet he's rarely mentioned among the greatest coaches. Why? Maybe because his brilliance wasn't about drawing up plays, it was about building trust. Today, the game still feels his presence. The NBA Finals MVP trophy bears his name. His number 6 jersey is retired across the league, an honor only Jackie Robinson and Wayne Gretzky share. Modern coaches like Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, and Eric Spoelstra embrace philosophies Russell pioneered. His fingerprints are on every dynasty since. Trust as the glue, defense as the hammer. So, does Bill Russell get enough credit? Maybe not, but history will never forget his impact. His legacy isn't just in the banners or the rings, it's in every coach who trusts their players, every leader who stands for something bigger than themselves. He didn't just change basketball, he changed how it was led. Think Bill Russell's story is incredible? Subscribe now as we're covering the legends of the game.